Yes, now we are recording. Thank you for the reminder. I appreciate it. So we're going to go ahead and get started with talking about Canvas. This is our new platform that we're going to be using to upload and submit all of your work experience and didactic hours. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. If you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up to let me know that you can see it, that would be great. Good? Awesome, thank you. All right, welcome to our first Feature Friday. So as I mentioned, Canvas is where you will be uploading your didactic and your work experience hours. You are going to be receiving a link by the end of the day on Monday to access this course. It is completely free and you will need to register for an account with Canvas upon invitation. If you do not receive a link in your email, make sure that you check your junk or spam email. When we practiced, we noticed it sometimes ended up in those folders, so keep an eye out. And if for some reason you don't receive it at all, reach out to your case manager and we will ensure that you receive that link. I'm going to go ahead and show you what Canvas looks like just briefly so that you have an idea. I can get a student view here. All right. So here are all of your required modules that you will need to complete throughout this grant year. Teresa, did you?
Kayla, we're not seeing it. We're still seeing the Canvas PowerPoint.
Okay, thank you. I forget that I have to stop, share, and reshare and all that jazz. Okay, thank you. Share screen. Here we go. Okay, thank you, Teresa. All right, so this is the student view for our Canvas page, and this is all where you will submit all of your WIOA didactic and work experience hours. Here we have personability. You will have instructions. Most of you should have received a link for that personability. If not, let us know. And then this is where you will upload your personability completion certificate. Just as an example, you could submit assignment here, and then you can choose a file and upload your certificate there. Oops, leave. Yes, that's okay. And then this is where you will put in your mental health first aid and your cash course. All of our Friday features are going to be recorded. So you will be able to submit your brief responses for your Feature Friday seminars here. It looks like I haven't unlocked it yet, but I will make sure it is unlocked. As I mentioned earlier, your attendance will count for 1 hour of didactic work. If you, for some reason, cannot make a Feature Friday and you would still like to access it and have it count towards your hours, you can email me and I'll send you or excuse me, no, you'll find the recording here under the Feature Friday seminars. And here you'll be able to upload them, view them, and no matter if you had attended it live or if you are watching the recording, you will need to submit a brief discussion with 2 points, 2 takeaway points that you received from the curriculum that we provided during that hour. So you will see those continue to populate as these seminars are happening. And we will keep you posted on when those will be taking place. It's going to be the 3rd Friday of every month. And then here, this is where you will find a place to submit any additional didactic modules. I am still streamlining some of those opportunities for you and making sure that they are easily accessible and easy to read. So I will be sending that out, that list out by the end of next week so that you have access to those. All right, are there any questions about Canvas before we move on?
I just wanted to remind you, and it's written here on Canvas, that those first 3 are required for your didactic hours. So the personability course, the mental health first aid, and cash course. Everything beyond that is your interest and your prerogative of whether you want to use it for your didactic hours or not. But those are the 3 that we're requiring that you do this grant year.
Thank you, Teresa. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing again. All right. Here are our emails. You all should have access to these. Just in case you don't receive that link, please let us know. All right, so the next step here also is registering for mental health first aid. As Teresa mentioned, that is part of the required didactic hours. That counts towards 8 hours for those requirements. We have scheduled a mental health first aid for 1 week during the winter break, which is Wednesday, December 16th. We have scheduled one Saturday session for those of you who have weekends off. That's Saturday, February 13th. And finally, during spring break, and we chose that Wednesday, March 10th. I will be putting in the chat box a Google Forms where you can fill out the form and sign up for whichever mental health first aid session that it works best for you. You can also find this registration in Canvas. There is a mental health first aid registration assignment there, and that will take you to the same link. Are there any questions about mental health first aid or registering? I have something in the chat. Awesome. Okay, great. So I know that many of you, we've all been having conversations about possible work experience hours. We have had a few other thoughts pop up that may or may not interest you. So we wanted to present a few ideas here. And we will also be sending out a Google Forms for you all to submit what you might be interested in. So if any of the things that I'm about to discuss briefly piques your interest, let me know, or we will be sending out a Google Doc that will allow you to let us know what you're thinking. Teresa and I have heard that there is a possibility of needing tutoring for students who are currently learning via Zoom through the Anchorage School District or other programs. And so if that's something that interests you, we are going to be looking out for those opportunities. And that could be elementary, middle, or high school. We're not quite sure what the need is, but we would love to figure out how to connect you with those opportunities if that's something that you're interested in. There are also opportunities with the PLN, and Naya Boney, who will be speaking about immigration and refugee populations today, can touch on those opportunities. I'll also be sending out an email with specific information about that as well. We have kind of been talking about a possible COVID-19 relief project, and this can look like a number of different things, but we are hoping to reach out to the community to see what need is there, whether those are grocery packages for individuals who may need to quarantine, or support with schooling for children who are on Zoom. That kind of ties in with the tutoring. So if that's something that interests you, really connecting with individuals who have been directly impacted by COVID-19, you can mark that on the Google Drive or the Google Doc survey that we'll be sending out. And finally, we are hosting health career camps for high school students with the AHEC who are also interested in going into health career fields. So these are 15, 16, 17-year-olds, and then as well as recent 2020 graduates. And what we're kind of imagining is, given our current circumstances with COVID-19 and everyone being virtual, we're thinking about having after-school camps that will last over the course of a month or a few weeks. And we would really love to connect these students with you all if there is interest here. This can look like mentoring, so connecting one-on-one with these students. It could possibly be leading a session for camp, and also maybe participating in a college topic panel to discuss what studies you are currently going through, where your interests lie, and what your experience has been with WIOA or with the passions that you are pursuing. So if any of these sound of interest to you, like I said, I'll be sending out a survey to kind of gauge interest, and you can always reach out to me for more information. Are there any questions here? Or Teresa, is there anything you'd like to add?
What does PLN stand for?
Peer leader navigators.
Thank you. You covered it well, but I had heard that and I didn't know what it stands for. So.
Yes, no, thank you. Yes. All right. So more information coming soon. And on that note, I will go ahead and pass the mic over to Nyaboni, who will be talking about immigration and refugee populations. So go ahead, Nyaboni.
Thank you. I think we're still waiting on one of the other guest speakers. I don't see Dr. Buckingham on here. That's okay. Let me share my screen and get the PowerPoint up while she gets logged on. And the other person, I think, Zabiba, are you on?
Nyaboni, do you want to talk maybe a little bit about the PLN opportunities while we wait?
Yeah, so the PLN, Peer Leader Navigators, is a program through the Anchorage Health Literacy Collaborative. That's housed under ALP, which is the Alaska Literacy Program, so many acronyms. But it's basically a group of community health promoters who help it's multicultural, multilingual, so they help people within their communities connect to health information and resources and do a lot of outreach in regards to that and some of the challenges and issues that arise related to health. So the opportunities that exist for, I think, you all as WEOS students is just to help with some of the projects that the PLNs are working on. And with COVID, there has been a project we're working on, particularly with the Muni, to do more outreach and awareness around the different relief packages for those families and individuals who are having hardships. So that's really it in a nutshell. If you have any questions, and if you're a person who, you know, speaks multiple languages, or maybe you don't speak another language, but you're interested in doing health outreach, this is, I think, a really great program or opportunity. Okay, now I can't see you all. Oh, okay, she's on here now. Hi, Dr. Buckingham.
Oh, hi, Nyaboni. I'm sorry. I
It's
just
okay.
joined back from late from a meeting. Good to
It's
be
all
here.
right. Everyone's Zooming everywhere. Well, thanks for being here, and I guess we'll go ahead and get started. So my name is Nyaboni, and I work with the Area Health Education Center as another health education coordinator. And I am very interested and passionate about all things related to immigrant and refugee populations, particularly health. And so Kayla and Teresa asked if I would speak a little bit about this topic, and I will say I'm not an expert, but I can share a little bit of information and insight. And I also invited Sarah Buckingham, who's with the university, and also Zabiba Mohammed, who's with the RAISE Refugee Assistance Program here in Anchorage. So I guess I'll have you two introduce yourselves really quick, and then can move on to the presentation.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Buckingham. I see some faces or some names I recognize at least, which is great. I am a professor here at UAA. I largely work within our clinical community psychology PhD program, so training up the new psychologists for the state of Alaska. And my work is largely with what I would call forced migrants, or people who have been forced from their homelands to migrate to the United States for a variety of circumstances. So I work a lot with people who are refugees and have been resettled here in Alaska, as well as people who have sought asylum. And so I was really honored to have Nayaboni ask me to be here with you today. So I'm here to offer up whatever I can from a bit of a clinical perspective, if you will, and mental health care.
Thank you. Sabiba, are you on? Okay, that's okay. If she joins us a little later, I'll have her introduce herself. But so today's presentation and talk will be pretty brief, like we're barely gonna scratch the surface as far as this topic. And as I was putting it together, I was like, oh man, there's a lot to it. And I was telling Kayla this, and hopefully maybe we can do a follow-up and kind of dive in a little deeper into particular areas of this topic. Because there's many facets. I hope you can take a little bit away at the end. And of course, feel free to ask questions too at the end. And you know, you all are in the healthcare or wanting to go into healthcare, and I think you all know too that everything leads to health and well-being in some way. And when we talk about the immigrant and refugee populations, migration is a determinant of health, and our systems and our policies and communities and all of those things have a great influence on the experiences and health outcomes. Just like a brief overview on the population size. Worldwide, there's about 250 million people who are considered foreign born, meaning that they live outside of their home country or their birthplace. And in the United States, this makes up about 14% of the overall population. About 20 million are naturalized citizens, 12 million are legal permanent residents, and 11 million are undocumented. And there has been a little over 3 million refugees who have been resettled in the United States. And in 2019, about 31,000 refugees were resettled, which has actually been, over the last couple of years, we've seen some of the lowest numbers in refugee resettlement here in the US. And we'll kind of touch on, well, I don't think we'll touch on any of that today, but there's lots of reasons why we see those low numbers. And the term immigrant can be used very loosely, and I think sometimes it's confusing because it can be used to encompass anyone who was born outside of the United States. But of course, we also know that there's different statuses a person enters the US with or lives with as they're here. But all of these statuses, like it's a lengthy process to come to the United States. So I'll just kind of give a brief definition of each. An immigrant is someone who chooses to permanently move to another country. So it's a voluntary decision. I'm going to put quotes on there to go to another country to settle. And this, again, could be a very long process, but with an immigrant, they at any point can, they have the freedom to return back to their home country. Of course, if things don't change, there's a lot of parameters around that. But migrant is similar to an immigrant, but they don't necessarily have to move across international borders. And they usually are seeking economic opportunities. And And then a asylee is someone who seeks asylum at the border of another country and is in the process of becoming, I guess, protected under, so I think I should probably be the fine flip, but wanting to seek refugee status on the grounds of fear of persecution or whatever it may be as far as their circumstances. And it's in like the destination that they want to go. So someone who might be coming from South America seeks asylum here in the United States. So that would be a pathway to entering. And a refugee is an individual who has been forced to move due to war or persecution and other grounds. And this status is granted under certain protections. And, you know, wherever a person settles, they usually, I think in all of them, whether you're an immigrant or a refugee or an asylee, eventually they could become a permanent resident or a naturalized citizen. And for a permanent resident, this is a status that's given to someone and they apply after being in the United States for some time. And it's like, but it basically have been working. Going down, the highest would be naturalized citizen. And this is, you know, gaining the rights of US citizenship. So all to say, and are important to know person coming that the process of migration is very challenging and, you know, it's a very challenging process. And worldwide, I think we're always going to have transient populations, and there's always going to be many reasons why a person moves out of their own country. And when we discuss the health of this population, we also have to consider and recognize that immigrants and refugees, it's a pretty diverse group. You know, we're not talking just like one ethnicity or culture or linguistic composition, but they come from many different backgrounds and experiences. So again, the journey, regardless if it was voluntary or involuntary, it poses great challenges. And everyone's migration experience is very different. The way someone enters, their background, influences their outcomes. And the journey is physically demanding, it's emotionally demanding, it's mentally challenging. And, you know, depending on, you know, what that journey looked like before they departed from their home country, someone could have pretty traumatic circumstances. And we also know as they arrive, there's a process or a phase they go through as far as adjustment and a process. And this just the environment in general, how to maintain their own cultural identity, language, for the process of learning a new language, accessing care, all of those components to basically creating a new life somewhere new. And there, I guess in the health context, there is many disparities in health outcomes that we see as a result of someone's experience in going through that process of adjustment. When I think of the word health, I always think of oh, what is that? Let me exit out of that. Can you still see my screen?
Yeah, we can, Nayaboni. Your slides are showing up okay.
Okay, good. That was weird. So when I think of health in the context of immigrant and refugees, the word like the healthy immigrant paradox, and there's different words, I think, or names to this, but it's the idea that when someone enters or comes to the US, they come like they're healthy and they have better health outcomes compared to their American counterparts. And there's many reasons why this might be true. You know, one could be when they first arrive, you know, you go through a pretty intensive process even before you leave, or that pre-departure phase that involves, you know, health screenings and assessments. And you're basically, I don't know what it's like, you're filtered through, you know, like making sure that you're healthy enough to make that journey. And with the healthy immigrant paradox, though they might be healthy when they first come, over time, their health trends or their health outcomes kind of deteriorate and begin to reflect that of the host country. And you might see higher prevalence of certain chronic conditions and diseases like hypertension, diabetes, heart disease over time for certain groups. And of course, it would also, you know, as you like going back to my point of how diverse this group is, you might see different health trends and outcomes over time. Other reasons to like seeing poor health outcomes in certain areas is just the adoption or just that acculturation process. So someone might adopt behaviors that might not be healthy, you know, poor diet, maybe they pick up bad habits, substance use, physical inactivity, many different things. And some of the other challenges or things I think about is access to care that really influences how someone's health status might change. And I think we all know here that healthcare costs are very high and we have a very complicated healthcare system in the United States. And so cost of care and how it's covered is very complicated. And for immigrants, and I'm going to use this term loosely, and in this talk, I might use it to kind of describe all in the breakdown of that status that I had in the earlier slide. But for immigrants in the United States, when they arrive, you know, their status really matters and determines how they access care. You can see in the image that the percentage of uninsured people in the United States in 2018. And you know, for US born, about 70% of our population is uninsured. And if you look at citizenship status, that could, you know, about 30% of that population is uninsured. And I guess if a person doesn't have employee-based health insurance, which is not I guess I don't want to say common, but if they don't have employee-based health insurance and they're unable to pay out of pocket, the options of covering the healthcare costs are pretty limited. And for immigrants, the first 5 years, they're pretty much ineligible for any federal assistance programs such as Medicaid or Medicare. And for any, for refugees, it's a bit different because they have limited benefits when they are resettled. But today, a large thing that influences when someone decides to access care is also some of the policy changes in immigration and enforcement. And a good example of this is the changes made to what is known as the public charge that was passed in 2019 by the Trump administration. And this rule applies to any non-citizen with some exemptions, like refugees, anyone who wishes to apply for adjustment in status, such as becoming a permanent resident or a citizen, if they are receiving any federal assistance through programs like SNAP or Medicaid, or maybe it's housing assistance, such as Section 8, this will negatively impact or count against them in being able to apply for residency and citizenship in the future. And there's also some other emergency orders that have implications for particular populations under the immigrant umbrella that has really changed and factored into discouraging people from using the services that they need in order to maintain their health and well-being. And so really if someone doesn't have health insurance through their employer and they don't, qualify for these other assistance, they're paying out of pocket. And something you'll see is high emergency room visit or high emergency room use, as people might be forced to wait until the very last minute to get the care that they need for things that could have been prevented from primary care, early screening, and disease management. But overall, for access to care, there are also other challenges for people who actually do, go and get the care, and utilizing the services is challenging because not everyone understands how the U.S. healthcare system works, or maybe they don't know what preventative care or preventative or primary care is, in which makes navigating it really hard. The language, the culture, the level of trust that they might have with healthcare providers, and even someone's perspective on how they see the role of a primary care doctor in their health and well-being also can impact accessing care services. Oh, okay. I went through that really fast, but I was hoping that Dr. Buckingham could talk about a little bit about the mental health side of things regarding the refugee and immigrant population, and then we can open it up for questions.
Sure. This is so funny. I'm realizing I'm wearing the same outfit that you have of me on the slide today. So that's kind of fun.
I can't see you guys, but it's so funny.
Really nice to be here. And thank you, Naib, Bonnie for all of that. The big things that I wanted to share with you with mental health as well are that we actually see the same paradox that Nayaboni was speaking to with physical health is also true in the mental health world. However, we're not quite sure exactly why all of that is true. One thing that often takes place for a lot of folks in the United States, not exclusively immigrant and refugee populations, but for many of us, is that mental health care is very stigmatized. So the idea of seeking out mental health services means somebody must be crazy, or they must be potentially violent, or they're something so outside of the norm. And that's not something that's exclusive to immigrant and refugee populations. That is true for so many populations here in the United States. But unfortunately, sometimes these things or the stigma around mental health care can be exacerbated when people have had really negative experiences with the mental health care system in the past, or have had systems of mental health care in their countries where mental health has been even further stigmatized than it is stigmatized here in the United States. For some people who are being resettled to the United States are going through a lot of screening procedures in order to arrive in the US. People actually get screened out and not able to come live in the United States if they have severe mental health issues like schizophrenia and other things, which leads people oftentimes to hide those symptoms of mental health challenges from providers because of the way that we've set systems up. And so as you're thinking about working with diverse populations within mental health, I think one of the key things that you can be doing as you're studying is learning how to destigmatize mental health healthcare services and normalize the idea that we all need to seek out and reach out for help when we need it. I often talk about mental health care in the same way that I talk about physical health care, that we usually go to our provider for a physical health checkup once a year, right? And we all go to our PCPs, and well, some of us do, some of us are working for mental health as well, to do a mental health. We see similar rates, and I see Zabiba's on here too, so I'll pass it off and I won't take up too much time on this call. But we see very similar rates of mental health disorders across populations. So speaking of, depression, anxiety, other things, mental health issues are across different cultures. And so oftentimes in certain populations, you might see mental health symptoms showing up more physically or somatically. So people complain about physical symptoms that are actually really related to mental health and distress. And so that can be something that's pretty common that we're on a lookout for, and something, if you're going into the medical profession, is something to pay attention to. And we also have lots of challenges with folks having poor access to care and treatment because of some of the laws we have in place and the way that healthcare gets rolled out, and the way that Nayaboni spoke to as well, which is certainly present in the mental health world. I think I'm going to pause there to make sure that there's enough time for Zabiba to speak, but I am more than happy to answer any questions that folks have about mental health care services and thinking about some of the unique stressors and challenges that come up with mental health care with newcomers to the United States.
Thank you for that overview. And sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah,
because
no, you're fine.
Things have changed a lot. And I don't know if Zabiba can hear us. I don't see her icon.
Oh, she had popped in and maybe she had to pop out again. I saw her pop up on the screen and then pop out.
I don't know what's going on with. So we just wanted you to have a chance to introduce yourself and to maybe talk a little bit about, I don't know, provide insight on immigrant and refugee health, and kind of like your experience in the work that you do with RAISE and as a peer leader navigator as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Abiba. I'm working at RAISE, education and employment specialist. I'm new for position. I'm not prepared to explain about the program more. Maybe I prepare myself, I can provide the information for next meeting or next time. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's okay. I hope we will have a follow-up because I think it's there's so many different pieces to this topic, and especially like for what RAISE does in working with refugees exclusively, for the most part, like your health orientation and kind of like maybe some of the health challenges that you see and the clients that you serve, it would be very interesting to know about, especially for those who are going into the healthcare profession. And Dr. Buckingham did answer one of my questions I wanted to ask both of you as far as like, you know, what should people know as the next wave of health professions when working with diverse populations. And in this case, I guess, immigrants and refugees. And I think Dr. Buckingham kind of touched on that a bit. I don't know if you want to elaborate.
Sure. I think one of the biggest things and why I'm glad that you're all part of this program is that we don't do a good enough job as health professionals in talking to each other. And so oftentimes, even within integrated care settings, we're still a bit siloed, and doctors aren't always talking to psychologists, and psychiatrists aren't always talking to therapists, and we all tend to be in our own world and using our own jargon, but we know that all pieces of our health relate to each other, right? And oftentimes the care that I provide as a psychologist, as a mental health care provider, informs the work that physicians do in their provision of physical health services. And so it's really important for us to be in integrated settings where we can talk to each other and learn each other's language and understand how physical, mental health all intertwine so that we can provide better care to our patients. And so that's why this program is really special too. And I spoke to it a little bit earlier when Naiboni asked me to talk about mental health, but I think in a lot of populations, and particularly immigrants and refugees, mental health tends to be expressed through physical symptoms. And so understanding that sometimes when things don't have an easy physical explanation to them, looking towards other things that might be explaining those physical symptoms is really important. And so including psychologists on your team or therapists as well, master's level clinicians, to talk through those things is really important. And I see Maggie put in the chat window, agreed, overall wellness is so important. Did you have other questions, Naiboni, or should we open it up for students to ask whatever questions they might have? And it looks like, did we lose Naiboni?
We might have lost Naiboni. I'm sure she'll pop up here momentarily. But I think that's a great idea. I'd love to open the floor for any questions or comments here. Nyaboni and I did talk about this morning because it is such a complicated topic and affects such a huge population, especially here in Alaska, that we are thinking about making this a series throughout this year. So we're looking forward to expanding on some of these topics as well. Oh, there she is.
I've got a question. If just put this out there to anybody who has any thoughts or information. We talked about a lot of the challenges that immigrants and refugees face getting health care or taking care of themselves, preventative care. Are there any organizations or efforts locally here to help them overcome those barriers? What can we do as a general population to help help this problem and help our community have better access to healthcare?
Yeah, that's such a good question, Teresa. I can start it, and then I see Nyaboni's back on, so she can probably offer things up, and so can Zabiba. There are a lot of efforts that have been taking place in Anchorage, and I'm going to list just a couple of them that I think are really fantastic. Right now, the municipality with Welcoming Anchorage has been doing some work with Nyaboni and me and some other wonderful people to look at the big barriers that we have in our community in order to figure out how we can address those challenges. So there is some research that's going on with that right now. There are also direct efforts that are in place. So one of the wonderful programs we have is we have a Peer Health Navigators program that are immigrant and refugee community leaders who are gaining a lot of knowledge and experience through training in topics related to health, and then helping people to navigate the system and providing education around health topics and how to navigate healthcare. And so that's really important too. My group also has a really wonderful network of mental health professionals. It's called Working Alongside Refugees in Mental Health. WARM is what we call it for short. And we provide trainings to clinicians around the state in topics related to mental health care with forced migrants, in particular refugees and asylum seekers, so that we have more providers who feel competent to be able to serve this population. And we also have some fantastic grants from community organizations that allow us to be able to provide interpretation services to clinicians who are in our network. Because one of the biggest challenges that we have here as a state is that our state health insurance does not reimburse for interpretation services. And so even if I, as a provider, am, let's say I'm even providing completely pro bono mental health care, which is typically what I do. I'm in a wonderful position to be able to do that as a professor. But even if I'm doing that, if my students are doing that, interpretation costs about $2 a minute. So you can imagine you're paying $100 out of pocket in interpretation expenses every time that you see a client. And that's oftentimes not a feasible fee for a client to pay. And as a provider, if you're already providing free services, it's not usually a fee that you can eat all the time too. And so I think one of the big things that we have to work on, that a lot of people are working on and some wonderful community organizations have funded, is care for interpretation, so that we're able to see clients who don't speak English or the language that providers are speaking. We also need more bilingual providers. So any of you who are bilingual here, keep up your language skills as you're getting into healthcare. Those are some thoughts. And Zabiba might be able to speak to RAISE as well. RAISE has Refugee Assistance and Immigration Services, provides a lot of wonderful education and case management, so to be able to support refugees in navigating the healthcare system as well.
Thank you, Sarah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
I have no idea what happened, but I'm back. I think I heard Teresa's question, fully, and I would wholeheartedly agree with what Dr. Buckingham just said, as far as the efforts that are happening in our community through the PLN program, through WARM, and the Welcoming Anchorage Initiative. And I don't really have anything to add to that other than, you know, you touched on language access. So kind of like recognizing that those services exist, but I think part of that comes with education. So, you know, just, you know, talks like this, increasing cultural sensitivity, and kind of just creating more inclusive environments to kind of welcome both sides to come to the table and kind of figure out solutions together as far as like what would work. And
Are you still there?
Oh, Zoom is such a fickle thing.
hello.
Also, technology access, right? I think this is something we're all dealing with now too. I know all the services I provide, all the services my PhD students provide are now over Zoom as well. And so you can imagine, not only is it challenging to access healthcare, but then accessing healthcare through technology has been a huge issue. RAISE has done an amazing job of getting technology out to clients who are in need of, you know, a smartphone to be able to talk with providers and be able to make their health meetings. But even then, this is, you know, is a challenging space for us to all be in. And with internet access limited across our city and across the state, it's a big challenge.
I was saying workforce development. That's what, even, you know, programs that we do here at the AHEC to increase diversity of our health, you know, health workforce. I think that's very important to kind of working together towards greater health and well-being. I don't know if Zabiba, do you have anything to add? I don't want you to put you on the spot because you are new in your role, but I also think you have great experience as far as like just your PLN work and just many other things that you do in the community. You don't have to feel obligated to talk. Is there any other questions?
Awesome. Well,
Sorry,
thank you.
Kayla, we didn't use the full time, but hopefully this was a good introduction.
Yes, this was a great introduction. And I mentioned while you had snuck away from Zoom for a moment that we are talking about making this a series. And so there will be other opportunities to explore this topic further. Thank you so much, Nyaboni, Dr. Buckingham, and Zabiba for taking time out of your day to speak about this topic with us. We really appreciate it. I know Teresa and I can stay on a few more minutes if we have any questions from the group. It can be either about today or WIOA in general. So we will hang out for any questions or comments. And other than that, I will set you free on this Friday and talk with you all soon. Teresa, do you have any comments or final words?
Thank Nyaboni and Professor Buckingham and Zabiba. Thank you very much. It was a really well done presentation and I learned a lot. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm happy to stay on if people have any questions. And Nyaboni, thanks so much for putting it together. Your slides were awesome. And yeah,
it's a hard topic. I have tons of papers here and things that are like, oh, I could mention this and mention that. But I hope this is an ongoing conversation. So.
Sorry to interrupt. I did have a moment here where I forgot that I was going to put the
Oh, I forgot to mention the survey.
This,
Oh, well.
go ahead and talk about it right now, Nyaboni, while I'm gonna upload the mental health first aid registration link in our chat box, because I almost forgot about that.
Okay. So, as was mentioned earlier, through the Welcoming Anchorage initiative and with Dr. Buckingham and a few other people, we created a survey to kind of understand the integration experience of the immigrant and refugee populations here in Anchorage. And so we're asking questions kind of related to just basic demographic information, education, like, you know, comfort levels as far as like using the different or utilizing the different things in the community as far as different systems. Sorry if I'm not making sense or if I'm being repetitive. To their being in the United States. And so anyone who is over the age of 18, we are encouraging, and who was born outside of the US, we're encouraging them to take the survey. It's available in Spanish and Hmong. It's, I don't want to say short, but it's a comprehensive survey, you know, maybe 15 minutes out of your time to take this, and you'll be entered into a drawing to, and then at the end, the second or part 2 of it is a focus group, which are not solidified yet, but we're hoping to do focus groups with those who took the survey, but also open it up for those who didn't necessarily take the survey, but who would like to share their experiences. Let Sarah go ahead if I forgot anything.
No, I think that's great. And it is a relatively short survey as far as surveys go. So I swear it won't take you all that long. But we are looking for a broader pool. So if you are yourself were born outside of the United States, or if you know of friends, family, other folks who were born outside the US that you would like to share it with, we would love to hear your experiences. I think one of the coolest things about this project is it's in true partnership with the municipality, with the intention of using that information in order to bolster what's already going well as come up with new initiatives for things that, you know, are a struggle right now. So I think it's not often that you live in a city that says, yes, we recognize that there are ways that we can always grow and shape and change for the better. And how wonderful that our municipality is willing to enter into that space with its community members. So I think I can promise your voice will be heard if you take time to fill it out, and the information you share won't be locked away in a cabinet. It's actually going to be used to better our community.
Trying to share the link, but
yeah, I was going to say, how can they access that survey?
I can put the link in the chat window.
Okay, thank you.
And I can also, or maybe Nyaboni already has, there's a flyer that could be sent around.
I think I sent that flyer to Kayla, but we can send it again. That's no problem.
I can also put it on Canvas as well. Okay. I am just very excited to use my new Canvas setup, if you can't tell. So there will be lots of opportunities to access it. Thank you for providing that in the chat box. All right, thank you everyone. If there are no questions, feel free to sign off. As always, Teresa and I are available to answer any WIOA questions or concerns that you may have. So feel free to reach out via email or phone call if you have any of those questions. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much for a great turnout today.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good weekend.
Bye, everyone.
If you want to stop the recording, I'll tell you how awesome that was.
Hello?
Oh, hi, Rita.
Hi.
Let me figure out how to end this recording. One moment, and then
Okay.
I'll answer your question.
Thank you.